Fair warning, advanced student, I am trying to freak you out. Hold yourself together. Don't let me do it, okay? Don't let me do it. Don't let the GED test do it. Let's take a look. It says evaluate. Now I'm going to say the quantity of, because I'm going to take all this thing, but negative b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of that, all over 2a. For a equals 1, b equals -1, and c equals -6. Now, reason why I chose this particular ugly looking thing is because you're going to see similar things like this by the end of this unit. But I already know you guys, my advanced students, y'all get bored. Y'all are like, Kate talks too much. Let me just take my test. And so I love to slip in things like this so that you have the skills to do this before you even know what the heck it's talking about. So looks kind of gross, but it's actually not that bad, because notice, this is just an expression, an ugly expression. I'll give you that. It's nasty looking, but it's just an expression where all the letters I see, I see A's, B's, and C's. Well, they're defined. They're given to me. They're not mysteries. The problem tells me what A is, tells me what B is, and tells me what C is. That means this is just a series of mathematical operations to do on known numbers. Now you might say, well, Kate, it's really hard to do. That looks gross. That's fine. I mean, you could stop the video like literally right here, and you can go back to the how to evaluate expressions in your GED calculator that we learned in Unit 0, and you could learn none of what I'm about to show you right now. However, if you're going on to college, you have any plans to take any college classes at all, the likelihood is you're going to see things that look like this. And so I'm going to teach you to do it with some algebra skills, not just in your calculator, so that you are well prepared. Okay, so don't panic. Here we go. We're going to do it step by step. It's not going to be nearly as tricky as it looks. Well, if you're a decent secretary, that's the hardest part here. Okay, so first step, we have some known values. Let's plug them in. Let's substitute. So I have this whole big old fraction, and I'm supposed to take the opposite, or negative, of b. I'm supposed to take the opposite of b. Well, what's b? b is -1. Careful. There was a minus here, and there's a minus there. I better see both when you go to write it down. I don't want you to drop one. That's the first place where your secretarial skills might shoot you in the foot. Okay, now I see a minus here. I write a minus. I see this big, long square root symbol. I write this big, long square root symbol. Okay, now I see a letter, B. B is not a mystery. It's a number. It's -1. I can plug in. Now here's the second place where your secretarial skills, you know what, I'm going to write these down because these are all common errors. I chose what I chose for a reason. It's the ones that you guys mess up the most often, okay? So first thing I'm going to watch out for is sometimes you get double negatives, okay? So watch out for your negative signs. Dropping negatives is a favorite mistake, okay? But the other thing is when you guys plug in negatives into exponential expressions. See how B is a negative value? And see how B right here is being squared? It has an exponent, so it's an exponential expression. You must always use parentheses around the negative number when plugging it in to an exponential expression. And notice the negative goes inside and the exponent goes outside. You will get wrong answers if you do not do that. All right? 90% of the questions you guys send me about this, I can't figure this out, is because you dropped the parentheses. You're like, Kate's probably being anal again. I don't really need them. Yes, you do. Okay, those parentheses say I want you to square all of -1, not just the 1. All of -1. All right, and from that I'm going to minus, because I see a minus. 4, because I see a 4. See, I'm just copying down from above. These are your secretarial skills again. And now A and C are shoved up against the 4. That means A, whatever it is, and C, whatever it is, they're multiplying. Oh man, I have to extend this even further. So what is A? Well, A is 1. And what is C? C is -6. Woo! 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 Tricky, tricky, tricky. Okay, now how about the bottom of that fraction? The bottom of that fraction said take 2 and multiply it by a. So that's what I'll do. I'll take 2 and I'll multiply it by my known value of a, 1. Okay. Once again, you could just pick up your calculator, type this entire expression in, be really careful not to drop any negatives, and you'll be fine. I am going to simplify it by hand because you're my advanced students, okay? You can roll with me, impress your college professors. Here we go. Okay, now remember, the top and bottom of a fraction are groupings, so we can work on them separately. So I'm going to look up top. Now, I got a couple of things going down. This the opposite of -1, well, that's like an act of multiplication. Okay, and then all of this stuff here, you know, -1 squared minus 4 times 1 times, it's all inside of a square root, so it's a grouping. Now, in theory, we do groupings before we do multiplication, so I'm just going to mark it, grouping, multiplication. But since these two things are separated by a minus sign, and that's the last thing we do, they're not going to affect each other. They don't share any information. So I'm going to do them both at the same time. And this is what my advanced students do. We realize when you can legally skip steps, right? So the opposite of -1, of course, is +1. Right? And then I still have that minus that's separating. I have this whole big grouping under this square root. Okay? Now again, I have a lot of things going on under this square root, but look at what they are. They're exponents, that -1 is being squared, and their multiplication. And again, I would usually do exponents before multiplication, but see how they're separated by this minus sign? It's all of that minus all of that, and they're not sharing any information, so I can do them both at the same time. See how lazy I am? A -1 times a -1 is +1. And from that, I'm going to minus, like I said, and I'm just going to put a parentheses here. It doesn't really matter, but just so I can see what's going on, I'm going to minus all of this multiplied together. 4 times 1 is 4, times -6 is -24. And again, I have a separate grouping on the bottom. It's separate, and so I can do it at the same time. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, this got a little simpler, a little easier. But there's still more to do in the grouping. Look at this. I have inside a square root symbol. Groupings are inside. I have 1 minus -24. Another reason I wanted to do this sucker by hand. That's great practice for the non-calculator section, where they really want you to remember that minusing a negative is the same as addition, right? Taking away a negative charge on your bank account would bring your bank account balance back up. Okay, and so one way to think about 1 minus -24 is just 1 plus 24, so that's 25. And I've just replaced this portion, okay? But I haven't dealt with the square root, I haven't dealt with the 1, I haven't dealt with the minus, or that the whole thing is over 2. See how it's your secretarial skills that are really making or breaking you here? Okay, what next? Well, I still have this grouping on the top of the fraction. Okay, there's nothing inside the square root anymore to do, like no operations in there, but I still need to take the square root, right? Square roots are a kind of exponent before I can do the subtraction. So let's deal with that. The square root of 25 is 5, right? I'm asking what number times itself is equal to 25. Now, another common error that students make, so we make errors with negatives, we make errors with negatives with exponents. Another common error we make is leaving square root symbols around. A lot of you guys just keep writing down the square root. Don't keep writing down the square root. I already did it. I took the square root of 25. It's used up. It's not there anymore. But the minus is still there. And the 1 is still there. The fraction bar is still there, and the 2 is still there. Woo, less and less scary every step. Okay, I always say you don't need to know everything to do. You just need to know the next thing to do. So what's the next thing to do? Well, there's still simplifying to do up top. And again, it's for my advanced students because we're about to see some negative numbers again. We're looking at 1 minus 5. I'm taking away more than I have, so I'm going to end up in the hole, negative, at negative 4. And I need to divide that by 2. Remember, a fraction bar means the same as divide, and that is easy division. I can do that. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Woo! Okay, so I simplified it all by hand. I substituted by hand. I did all of that. So I'll just remind you that your calculator can do both, okay? It can do the substituting using the store button, or you can do the substitution yourself and just do the simplifying as long as you're in math print mode. I don't really care what you do for the GED. Pick up your calculator, do the whole thing in your calculator if you want, but I do care that you don't panic at the sight of all this stuff, you know. This is how advanced level students can pass without doing all the work in all the units. There's a lot of overlap here, right? So we see that this complex concept we're going to encounter at the very end of this unit is actually made pretty simple by a simple skill like evaluating. Woo! Okay, I asked you to do hard things. You should probably go have a break now. I don't know, go sit in the sunshine, have some tea. What do you do for a break? I don't know. That's what I do. But then don't forget to, let's move on to the next lesson, learn some more stuff. Okay, you guys. All right. Happy learning.